You're listening to The Talent Sync. The Talent Sync is a collaborative podcast production about anything and everything recruiting and hiring. Literally the kitchen sink on how all things in talent acquisition work together, should work together, and how sometimes they don't. Now it's time to sync up with your hosts, Leah Daniels and Kevin Grossman. Today's topic is about the future of job boards in the era of Gen AI. Talent Sync's Leah Daniels and Kevin Grossman welcome special guest Mark Jenson, co-founder and CPO of JobLeap.ai. Enjoy the podcast. Hey Leah, how are you doing? It always feels like it's forever between our recording sessions when I see you, but it's not that long, but it feels like it, right?
It does feel like it. Although I've been on vacation, I had exciting new stuff happen in our business, and I am looking at the fall trade show schedule, which I think running a marathon may in fact be easier than surviving HR Tech Fall 2024.
It's going to be crazy town for you? Is that what it's going to be?
It's insanity. Craziness.
Before I have a little segue thing that I wanted to share, but before I do that, what's the exciting job sync news then? Did I miss a memo?
Well, no, I think I didn't send a memo, which is probably why you don't have the exciting information. That's probably.
Can you share then? Since you said, okay.
I don't know if you know this about my style, Kevin, but sometimes when I'm working and I'm growing a business with great people, we do things very strategically and thoughtfully. And sometimes you see somebody on LinkedIn who says open to work and you're like, hey, I have no job. I have not funded this.
I know where you're going.
But I really, really, really would like to chat with you. And sometimes it works out. And I was super excited. I got to bring on a guy named Justin Schmidt. He's joined us as our new head of marketing. And I am so excited. He's almost 3 weeks in, and it feels like he's been here for 3 years, and it's awesome. And I love when a plan that I didn't have comes together.
That's nice. Yeah, I know Justin now. Now the bells are going off because I actually did know that. I thought it was other news, but no, it's that news. No, I know Justin. I knew him when he was with Largely. We did some work with him. I did a workshop actually with them. He's good people. I'm glad you've got him on board. So already he feels like he's been there. You said.
Yeah, and the funniest story of the whole thing is, so I don't know if you know this, but my son plays rugby in the summer, and I was at a rugby tournament as one goes as a parent of a rugby player, and I'm sitting next to a person whom I have sat next to for the last, I don't know how many years, every spring and summer. We chit-chat. I know very little about her other than her first name and that she really likes to vacation on the Cape, and those things are great. And just as conversations happen, I said something about going away and how I had somebody coming on new and how I hate onboarding people while I'm gone. It's always the worst. And she's like, oh, I just got back from vacation. I had to onboard too. I totally understand all of the things. And I happened to say I brought on a new person to run marketing named Justin. And she just looked at me and went, Schmidt. And I went,
what?
Holy what?
Who is this? Who was it?
I just got introduced to him. I actually have coffee with him later in the month. He's one of the best in the business. I can't believe that you got him. That's so cool. So it was really fun to have this outside validation. So now I'm like, who are you? And do you have a last name? And what is your job?
Now expectation is super high, right?
Yeah. So she's awesome. She runs content for Oracle, content marketing for Oracle. She came from the NetSuite team and she's built out the content. But this is a person I've known for years. We sit next to each other and talk about kids and rugby and nothing in particular. And how cool is that? I love when all the forces come together and it's just wow, this is awesome. So of course I texted him. I'm like, you're not going to believe what's going on right now.
That's great. That's awesome. So no, I love Justin. Glad he's on board. So real quick before we jump into the topic and I'll have you introduce our great guests that we have today. So my wife and I are doing our kind of workout walk hike this morning, and we are fortunate where we live because we live right behind the base of the Santa Cruz Mountains. So we're kind of we call this the canyon walk. So we're walking up this trail not too far from our house. And there's this older man that's huffing and puffing doing his walk, but it feels like he's trying to catch us. He's not saying anything, but he just I kind of get that, you get that sense when somebody's behind you. And I keep hearing him get closer and closer. And we turn around and look, and finally he comes right next to us and starts talking. He's really nice. He's like, oh, you guys are going really fast. It's like, oh, we're doing our workout, we're walking. And we just start talking about stuff. And he's just a nicer older man, must live in the neighborhood. I don't know. Talking about the Olympics. He's like, hey, what happened with the Jordan Childs, the gymnast? And I said, well, as far as I know, that she's still not getting the medal, even though there was other, video evidence provided. And then he immediately starts saying, you just can't believe anything you see anymore today. And he was implying, AI generated. And I'm like, well, I don't think that was the case with this per se. So to kind of segue into what we're going to be talking about, I mean, AI is everywhere. It's everywhere in our personal lives, it's in the world of work, and there's a lot of value to it that we'll talk about today, but it's scary. I mean, I'm reading a book called The Big Nine. I'm still trying to get through it. That was written 5 years ago by Amy Webb, and she's laying out a lot of different scenarios about what's going on in AI, and it's kind of starting to freak me out a little bit. And that was 5 years ago. But we're going to talk more about it in the context of job boards and what's going on with companies on recruiting and hiring and the candidates themselves. But why don't you segue further and introduce our guest, Leah?
Awesome. Well, I'm glad the person following you was in the safe zone and not in the
he was safe.
Zone.
He was fine. He walked up the hill with us and then went on his way. So
I'm excited to introduce somebody who is in the safe zone. He can walk up the hill behind you anytime.
Woohoo!
So Mark Jenson has joined us. Mark and I have known each other for a few years. He is currently the co-founder and chief product officer at an AI company in the HR space called JobLeap.ai. And Mark and I actually knew each other from his earlier lives. I used to be a product leader over at talent.com and before that at RecruitX. He currently, on top of his AI gig, is also running a fractional product leadership consultancy firm. It's called Insignia Innovations, which I think is really interesting because fractional leadership is something we're starting to see more and more of. And if you think about why that actually is really helpful for a lot of organizations, sure, at the small side, but also because of the specialties needed, right? Increasingly, the one-size-fits-all person in your business can be a tough place to be a small business, and having expert sort of surgical leadership available to you, I think is a really cool and helpful way for businesses to grow and grow faster. So Mark, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome.
Pleasure to be here. Good to be with you both.
Mark and I met I actually remember the day we met. I was standing in a conference next to him and I'm looking at him going, how have we never met, even though we've been in this space for 1 million years, like combined? And it was like, we haven't ever met, have we? No, we haven't met. Well, that's so weird.
I know it's like a lot of people, I know their names, I even know their faces, and I'm embarrassed that I haven't actually met them. And sometimes that embarrassment prevents you from actually saying hello for the first time. And other times you're like, you know what, I'm just going to plow through this barrier and say hello to this person and just embrace the shame. So let's just embrace the shame. Kevin, we had this conversation before. How have we not met? Let's embrace the shame.
How have you two not met?
Here's the thing. I'm just this old Gen X dog in the biz, and I've been around for a long time, but I've never claimed to know everybody and or know all the things that are going on. In fact, I don't know anything about JobLeap.ai. So can you tell us a little bit about, Mark, what that is?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So JobLeap.ai, we are a marketplace for job seekers and employers to match. We are trying to use a lot of the AI tools, but use them responsibly to help job seekers automate some of the processes that are cumbersome, while also doing that in a way that's factually accurate. And I love that we're talking about this because we're going to get into a lot of these pieces, right, that are plaguing the current environment. But it's not just the job seekers. We've got to help the employers too, right? Because they're getting inundated with way too many applications that have been doctored up and that are, some people didn't even know they applied to positions. So that's what we're trying to help here.
They were generated.
Right. This isn't lazyapply.com, right?
This is not that.
No, thank you. The marketplaces have been around. I mean, I came into this space actually at the end of '99 with a startup in Santa Cruz that at the time, I think was way too early to market at that point, touting AI matching technology, which I think was a little bit early. We had some interesting secret sauce, but did not survive the .com demise, unfortunately, at the end of the day. But there is a lot, right, Leah? There's a lot of, I can't tell you, the past few weeks, I've been doing a lot of data check-ins with companies that participate in our benchmark research for candidate experience. And the organizations are seeing just influx after influx of applications today. Influx of applications from candidates, and their teams are leaner. Their hiring volume is lower. So and candidate frustration is higher, right? So Mark, I mean, is that something you're hearing and seeing too?
Time for a talent sync break.
Hey everybody, Kevin Grossman here, president of Talent Board and the Candidate Experience Awards. Our 2023 Candidate Experience Benchmark Research Program will open in January and run through August 31st. To learn more on how your organization can participate, go to thetalentboard.org.
Break time's over. Now back to the talent sync.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll give you two quick examples from both sides of the market. This was on Reddit. A job seeker posted their experience applying to jobs. 186 applications that they did. 147 they were ghosted for. 147 completely ghosted. 30 of them, they got automatic rejections. The balance, they went through various cycles of interviews and ultimately got to 3 offers, one of which they accepted. So good for them. However, if you do the math on that, 3 offers divided by 186 applications is a 1.6% conversion rate, which is atrocious. On the other side of the house, here's another anecdote. I heard about this the other day, that someone posted a job, and in the first 7 hours, they got 900 applicants.
That's actually increasingly normal.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Exactly. And so they closed it down. They took the first 100 applicants, and they looked and found that 75 of the first 100 were a perfect fit for the role. And then they picked up the phone, started calling these people, and found out that, it's not all as it seems on paper. Many of these applications had been submitted through automation. People didn't know they had applied. Many of them had been generated, as you said before, Leah, to match the job description perfectly. And so you've got this vicious cycle now where job seekers, because they haven't heard back, because the difficulty in the application process is so long and arduous, and they have to repeat the same information. It's redundant. They have to create yet another login for Workday and Taleo and so on. And so they're resorting to automation tools naturally. That makes sense to me. That's exactly what I would do if I were in that situation. It is a numbers game. And yet, on the other side of the house, you have, as you mentioned, Kevin, these recruitment teams that are now smaller. They're working on fewer postings, but now they have to deal with more applicants. And so that means they're less likely to actually get back to these people. Now you have this vicious cycle, right, where each is reinforcing the other's behavior.
And you've got complications that exist that are truly unique to recruiting, right? Kevin, you and I have talked about, is it real or is it not real? The rule that says if you're a government contractor, you can't shut that thing down until you've got your hire, right? And so now we're leaving it up at 900 applicants a day coming in, right? Because you can't take it down. And you put that word remote and hold on, it's coming. And then your point, right? There's AI. So I think, about this a lot. There's automation, there's AI, there's large language models, where this word AI has really blown up a lot, but Gen AI, the generative quality of AI, can also be hallucinogenic and creative, and it can generate your experience, whether or not you have it or not, to match the job posting. And it can be done without your awareness. And that is now, like, where do recruiters go when the thing they've always trusted is no longer trustworthy?
So prior to what you're just saying right now, and by the way, I mean, in the next few years, you think it's bad right now, it's going to exponentially explode. So this is the first year in our research and data where we ask candidates, are you using Gen AI, ChatGPT, Bard, etc., to just help you, just to get a leg up? Are you using it to do your resume, your cover letter, period? And this year, we're about ready to close the surveys. We're about at 200,000 responses this year globally. Most of those are in North America. Only 10% of the candidates say that they're using it right now. It's the first time we've asked it. We're going to ask even more questions in next year's benchmark as well. But I mean, the part of the problem, isn't it? Because this isn't new. Everybody's trying to match who they are in the resume and cover letter, even pre-generative AI with the job that they're interested in. But serial appliers, folks that are just that they were already applying for jobs. And I mean, and this is no offense to that candidate on Reddit, right? Why are you applying for 186 jobs? I'm not trying to disparage anybody in their job search, because I have data that shows that some folks are like 6 months are looking. So I understand that. But individuals, how do you not know that you've applied for something? If you're using these tools, maybe I can understand that. But serial applying is part of the conundrum for employers, right? Because think about the people who really feel like, I got something for this job. Like I need the job. I've got some of what they're looking for. I'm going to try to get myself in the best light. And they're being drowned out more and more. So what do we do? What do we do with that?
Yeah, that's a huge problem. And I've actually done a number of interviews with people who are looking for work who say this exact thing, and they're torn between the advice that they've been given from coaches who are saying, hey, actually don't mass apply, instead focus on a few, like, find your bucket list of jobs and or companies that you would want to work for, then go do in-depth research on just a handful of those, and then back channel. And in other words, like, put a high level of effort into a very few, right? Versus a low level of effort into many, many, many opportunities. And I don't know that there's one right answer to that. I think it's probably a balance of that. And there's probably like a distribution where, if you have the skills and you're a very marketable leader in that space, then maybe being very selective is going to be beneficial for you. But for the vast majority of people, they don't have a strong presence on LinkedIn. They don't have, they're not marketing themselves well. Let's just face it, right? And attention, and even if they were, even if we all were, excellent marketers on LinkedIn, attention is a finite resource. And there's going to be this sort of gravitational pull where a few people are going to rise to the top and the attention is going to gravitate toward them. That's just how humans are wired. That's how we work, right? So we can't all be marketers for ourselves, but yeah, I think the balance is somewhere there in the middle where it is a numbers game, but you should be selective as well.
I think it's a hard thing, though, to put out to people, because this isn't a new problem. This is a growing problem. This has been slowly growing for the last 30 years as we've automated, we moved to the internet, nobody circles in the newspaper anymore, makes a phone call. The world has changed, and the throughput and the capacity of recruiters is finite. That's actually, I think, the biggest limiting factor at this point is actually the recruiter's capacity is finite. And legally using AI to screen candidates is getting dicier and dicier. So their capacity isn't increasing, and the ability to mass apply, and they're mass applying because you can't get back to them. And so that they don't know, there's nothing that when you go to a career site that says, we're going to be awesome and we'll get back to you in 3 to 6 months. You don't know. And so you're like, I have to play the numbers game. Maybe I deep dive and I go strategic on a small percentage, but I got to play the numbers game too, because I don't know if the 10 I pick are going to be the 3 to 6 month responders. Don't know.
And Leah, add this, and think about all the organizations that you try to help make all the techs work together, right? But the application process itself, which is, I always have said tongue in cheek, but it's the least glamorous part of anything we do in recruiting and hiring, is the application process. And we've made it a lot easier for folks to get in the door, which is also it's added to the problem, right?
Yeah, well, it's funny. I've had 2 conversations today with very large companies who said the same thing about their ATS, and they had two different ATSs. So the big ones, we won't call out who they are, where the key piece of information they need on the candidates to determine qualified or not qualified is buried, and it's 3 to 4 clicks in per candidate. So recruiter walks in to 900 applications last night, and it's a 4-click process to say yes or no to each one.
But we can solve for that, can't we?
I mean, one would think, but you have to think about these monolithic systems that they're operating in that are security first approach. And look, I actually get it, right? If you think about candidate data, human resources data, you have to have a high degree of security, which means you're looking through the lens of very rigid approaches to information and information security and data access and so forth. So these guys are sort of operating in these systems that have been built for the security first approach. They're monolithic. They're highly rigid. They're not really workflow engines. they're also layered with compliance challenges, right? These things, they're not CRMs, and I say CRM like a salesperson CRM, where it's like, a little data here and a little data there, and you just send out an email, right? It doesn't work that way. And so the recruiting team, again, is a capacity problem. And they're armed with tools that are taking into account the needs of the organization and not the needs of the recruiter, because of the liability that comes with a big, giant database of people's personal information. This is the world that we're in. And now blow up and support candidates with this ability to mass apply, lazy apply, or generate applies. It was funny because I did have this conversation the other day on stage and about all of this. And the biggest problem in all of this is behavior change. How do we change candidates' behavior to get them to do what you're saying, Mark? How do we get them to just apply to 10?
Yeah. And to work on, networking as much as they can, and all the things that I know that I had been mentored on over the years, and things that I had to learn the hard way about. And you're right, they're not even using LinkedIn. But I think, Mark, what I'm curious about is how can, because we're in this world today, and speaking of the states in particular, how the EEOC is kind of now hedging their bets about how platforms, ATSs, etc., can be seen as agents of employment. And there's already been one case in that regard that's happened. And it may start. Then what you highlighted for us too, Leah, before we did this podcast, was the laws that are in California, where I live, and in Colorado. California's hasn't passed yet, but Colorado has. But it's kind of piecemeal, and the EEOC is trying to take, and they've been doing the dog and pony for 2 years. But where is AI? Where can it really help us with this conundrum that we're at, Mark, right now?
Time for a Talent Sync break.
Hi, Talent Sync listeners. I just wanted to share a bit about JobSync with you all. JobSync helps companies get more quality candidates out of their job board advertising and automates a variety of manual recruitment tasks by solving for the very low conversion rate challenges most companies experience on their career site. JobSync integrates your entire application, including all of your questions, directly into the various job boards' quick apply processes, providing you with fully completed applications directly into your ATS, and resulting in 2 to 5 times more candidates while dropping your cost per application by half. This helps return up to 10 hours a week back into your recruiter's time through custom automations that are based on your business-specific recruiting processes. JobSync works with most major ATSs like Workday, SuccessFactors, and Taleo, CRMs, programmatic platforms, and job boards like Indeed and Zip. You can check out jobsync.com to learn more.
Break time's over. Now back to the Talent Sync.
Yeah. Well, I think there are a variety of different kinds of AI. There's traditional machine learning, right, which is your supervised and unsupervised machine learning, which has really historically, that's been AI as far as we've known it until more recently when we have these generative models. So, yeah, and I just want to point out too, the generative models are meaningfully different. The large language models, they are more probabilistic in nature. They're stochastic, meaning that for a given set of inputs, you might get a different output. This is why you can have things like hallucinations, right? This is not the case for a lot of the traditional ML models, like in your supervised machine learning, your regression, which is trying to predict some continuous variable, like what's the stock price tomorrow, or something like that. Or a classification problem where you're trying to say, hey, is this person going to default on the loan or not? Or is this spam, or is it a legitimate email, right? Those are more classification use cases. And those things, given a set of inputs, will give you one deterministic output. If you give it the same inputs, you'll get the same output every time. That is the nature of those models. Large language models are very different. So how can we get to a point where we can actually have some confidence in the outputs of large language models? I think that's one of the big questions, because you have this erosion of trust right now, right? Where I think, Kevin, you earlier were talking about this real fear of, what's going to happen? Like, can we trust these models? Can we trust the outputs? And frankly, we can't if we don't know what the output's going to be.
Well, and I think that, and the context from which it's being delivered, and who's using it and why. There's
bad actors.
Well, that's the thing, right? It's not so much on, this isn't I'll take a step back because one of the things that we know in our research for the past few years is that it still has been a smaller portion of employers that are telling us they're actually utilizing some level of AI in recruitment. And what we're talking about, the most comfort zone is conversational AI. It's chatbots. It's communication. It's like, this is where you're at in the process. Here's some questions that we can answer for you. I mean, that more conversational aspect is where the greatest comfort level is. This is the first year that we've seen employers tell us that about up to 20% of them that are responding are starting to use more of it. It was only 10 to 15% for a few years. So it's growing. But like I said earlier, only 10% of the candidates told us they're using a tool like that.
But if you think about a 10% swing on either side,
yeah,
right, is actually significant, especially against the market conditions we're looking at, right? I think the other thing, just as a little to pull on, like all good buzzwords, AI is not AI is not AI. And so part of what is hard to measure in all of this is which tools in the market that are labeled AI are actually AI versus which ones are, let's say, leaning towards AI, right? We're a little bit more algorithmic based. Mark, I liked your word supervised, right? We actually do know the outcome based on the inputs because it's leveraging a set of if-then statements. But we're leaning towards AI. It's not that necessarily that these tools are AI as much as they are in that direction. They're headed that way, or they're using small parts of AI opportunities to do classification or even filling in blanks, right? I don't have all the information, but I can determine gaps based on AI APIs available and using it in that way. So I do think it's an interesting challenge too in measuring, Kevin, because when someone says they're using AI, they're using a chatbot, for example, right? All the chatbots say they're AI, but not all of them are yet. Some of them are, but they all say they are.
Agreed. Going back to the candidate's perspective, and Mark, I'd love to hear even more to it in a second about how we can help candidates more with these technologies that are just going to, in the next few years, are going to, again, explode exponentially. But I just know real quick, in our data and research, candidates care about engagement and communication and, of course, ultimately getting the job, and most won't. But anything that's helping them, shepherding them along the process, getting their questions answered, getting information, understanding communications, where am I at in the next steps, all of those things, there is a very big positive sentiment bump in our data when they have that. And it doesn't matter to them. I mean, let me take that back. They do want to talk to humans, but it doesn't matter to them ultimately if they are getting if it's happening with them. As far as until the point that they're not being pursued any further and then there's some ultimate closure, whatever that is, most aren't going to get the offer. So candidates will use these tools more and more in the years to come, for good or bad, but they just want the job and most aren't going to get it. So what else can we do for candidates, period? And what is your vision of that? Would love to hear a little bit more of that. I know you touched on it earlier, but.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think I'll try to answer that question in a minute, but I also want to say that I think I don't want to give generative AI a bad rap here because I think it's actually really good. And we're just in an early stage of this right now where, it is, we haven't worked out all the kinks yet. But I mean, even some of the things that happened just a year ago with some of the things that would come out of these models that were horrible have been prevented now, right? There are things that, like if you even try to have conversations that are against the policies, now the policies are enforced within these tools, right? So that's a good sign. You also have the advent of things like Perplexity. I don't know if you guys know about Perplexity.ai, which is fantastic, right? This is more of a retrieval augmented generative AI approach where actually you have a database of facts from which you're pulling, and then you're generating information based on those facts. I think this is a very interesting model for some of these tools to deploy in service of job seekers. So if you could start with a set of ground truths about someone's experience and capabilities, hopefully based on a resume or a LinkedIn profile or something like that, and then from that, generate alternative CVs, resumes, cover letters that were factually accurate based on those ground truth facts. I think that would be very interesting. And I think we'll see some of those developments as we go over the next few years as these technologies start to develop more and more.
Do you think that might, because I haven't heard a lot about blockchain today. Do you think coupled with blockchain, I know there was a little bit of buzz around how I can have a verifiable certified profile of me via blockchain that I could then distribute for applying for jobs, applying for credit. I mean, all those things. You think at some point that might get coupled with where we're going?
Yes and no. I want to hear Leah's thoughts on this too, but here's my quick take. You've got companies like CV Wallet, which I think are doing some interesting things, right? I think there's going to be a distaste for this in Europe and in the States when it becomes mainstream because of let's think about the credit report, right? In this case, details on the credit report are provided by third parties. Right. So it's verified by a third party, not me, whom the credit report is about. And then I can dispute things that are on that credit report. But in order for that credit report information to be useful for a third party in granting me credit, the information in that has to be verified by not me, by a third party, in order for another third party to trust it, right? So can you imagine the kind of liability if one employer put something bad on your employment report and now you're tarnished and can't get another job? Like, that would be insane. We would have mass aversion to that.
Valid point.
I think there's a couple of things in there. I can lean into the verification of, yes, this person did work here between these dates and that dates, and these are the titles in which they had. I can absolutely see a world in which interconnected systems allow for that information to ground into truth. The problem is that when you think about a recruiter looking at a resume or a CV, while your title and your company, your time are useful grounding information, what they're really after are those bullet points of what did you accomplish, what did you get done there, what are the numbers, what are the details. And there's two things that I think are going to run afoul in that. One is who would verify that information, where would that come from, and two, 100% of companies 100% of the time will go, oh no, that's proprietary information, can't have that. And so everybody's CV is about to become title company time, and that's hard, right? Because, and by the way, companies are probably right that a good chunk of the information on the CV is absolutely breaching some level of confidential information. Customer names, right? I think about things you've seen on those customer names, the size of your team, technologies you've built or developed, or
revenue numbers,
growth numbers, all of it. Yeah, it's actually like one of those things that if ever there was a place where companies should panic, and they don't, about information getting to competitors, it's through the resume itself. And I think that'd be a really hard thing to get everybody on board. And what third party is going to be like, oh yes, Mark, you did grow revenue by 26% that one quarter. Like, who's going to know that, right? And I think that's going to be where that comes off the rails on that piece. So it's sure on some of the information, but the important stuff, the good stuff, it's hard, right? And that's also where people make stuff up. They were already generating it long ago.
By the way, every single one of our social security numbers have now been hacked. I don't know if you saw that news as of about even earlier this year, and now it's coming out that, 2.9 billion people? I mean, and all the U.S., most of the social security numbers. So we don't own anything of our own information anymore anyway. So it is gone, and sadly. So everybody check your credit reports and do your due diligence for sure.
I'm pretty sure that credit report companies were one of the ones that breached a couple of years ago. So
they were, by the way. It was, yeah.
And just to come back to the blockchain thing, I'm actually kind of bullish on the idea, Kevin. I like the idea of having some sort of verifiable, but B, also portable.
Yeah, portable. That was the key too. Yeah.
Think about that, because right now, the
secure and
best,
portable, secure and portable.
And the best, sort of proxy to that we have is LinkedIn, which is not portable. It's behind the Iron Curtain. And so, I think that would be very attractive for a job seeker. I also thought about this too, though. Why should UX UI designers, why should developers and some of these folks be the only ones that have portfolios of their work, right? Shouldn't we all have portfolios of our work? Shouldn't we all be able to say, and think about this too, right? If you go to an employer and you're trying to interview, if you're a job seeker, most of the time you only have your resume and whatever bullet points you were smart enough to collect or could remember when generating your resume, assuming you decided to do that factually using generative intelligence, not generative artificial intelligence, just generative intelligence. But having some actual concrete work examples would be a huge benefit for people who are applying to jobs and then trying to demonstrate their skills and verify that for a prospective employer. I think that would be very beneficial. And so I think, blockchain is definitely here to stay, even though the hype cycle has kind of waned a bit. I think it's here to stay. It's going to be one of these transformative technologies along with the advances in AI for sure.
I've always sort of thought about where blockchain gets super interesting is there's a bunch of things that you answer for employers every blessed time.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Can I just submit a thing that's like, yes, I am still over 18? Shocking, I know. Who knew? I still live in the same address, and fun fact, still a girl. I'm comfortable with that. I don't want to change it today. Somebody else might want to, but for me, I'm going to lock that one in. I don't need to answer it again. Right? There is a bunch of stuff that we do ask candidates to, and this is what kills them, right? It's like where they go like Workday, for the love of everything. Every employer on Workday is asking me the same my profile questions. Must I fill this out again? And I 100% understand why Workday doesn't want to deal with it. The security problem, the data ownership problem, GDPR. It's complicated. I get it. But as a candidate, you don't, because you don't care about GDPR and you don't care about why the security matters. You do, but you don't at that moment in time. What you do care about is your time that you are spending creating yet another login for our friends at Workday. And that's the challenge, right? Like that is, and that's it. That's where we're at as a business. I don't know.
No, I totally appreciate it. Mark, thanks so much for being on the Talent Sync. We totally appreciate it. I mean, you shared some really valuable insights. I think for me, there is so much exciting potential where this may all go. And I worry about the dark rabbit holes that will continue to appear to. And I don't know whether we need broader regulation to kind of help have bigger guardrails. I don't know, but we'll have to wait and see where all this goes. I think it is exciting, but the next few years, it's going to be, I don't even know. I've never been a soothsayer anyway. I hate when people ask, what's going to happen in the future? I'm not going to say anything. I just know what everybody wants now. And when I came into this space, we've never gotten there. Not yet. Anyway, Mark, any last word before we go?
Thank you so much for having me on the podcast. This has been great. It's been fun. I hope I get a chance to do it again.
Awesome. Leah, as always, we did it. We went over. We could keep talking about this stuff. We'll have to. I
could nerd out on this for hours and hours. And I do, in fact.
That's all right. We'll have to have Mark back. So, Leah, always a pleasure.
Likewise.
Everybody download the Talent Sync. Enjoy our podcast and your favorite delivery methods. And otherwise, Leah, until next time.
Sounds good, man. Talk to you soon.
Thank you for listening to the Talent Sync podcast, a Candy Benchmark research program and JobSync collaboration. More episodes soon. Subscribe via your favorite podcast player today.